Hello and welcome into the Wild Tales podcast. I am your host, Mike Bona. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first episode, you're in for a treat. I have a great guest today. Thank you for tuning in, and I don't know how you found it, but I'm glad you found it. If you are a returning listener, thank you for supporting the podcast. It's listeners like you that's helping this little podcast grow, and I greatly appreciate it. However, there's more growth to be had. I would love to see this podcast shoot up the chart to be among the top listened podcasts in the country, nay, the world. And we can do that if you just tell your friends and family about it. If each of you listening to this podcast tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and they tell 100,000 friends, we could be right up there with Smartless and Conan and the podcast giants of the world. Okay, maybe my ambitions are a little high there, but I would like to get this podcast out to more and more people out there because I think I have some great guests, some great stories that people would like to hear. So please share and also subscribe, like, comment, rate 5 stars, whatever you got to do to help this podcast get noticed by more people. Also, it's because of the more listeners I'm receiving and the more attention this podcast is gaining that I get to interview great guests like today. I have Charles Hood, who is a author. He is a photographer. He has traveled the world. He's been a nature guide in Africa. He's been to all 50 U.S. states. He's actually been to 80 different countries. He's been all the way down to the South Pole. He has a long list of birds and mammals that he has recorded. He has a fascinating life, a great story, and he is releasing a book called Nature at Night, Discover the Hidden Worlds That Come Alive After Dark. It is a illuminating and beautiful crafted exploration of the nocturnal world. With wit, curiosity, and an adventurous spirit, Hood takes readers on a journey into the darkness, revealing the astonishing life that thrives when the sun goes down. It is a great book. I received an advanced copy and I read through most of it. It is fascinating. The illustrations and the photos are just simply gorgeous. And I've never met Charles Hood before. This is the first time I've had a guest on who I have never met before. And he sounds like a really cool guy. I really had a great time with him. I'm sure you all will love him as well. So I will stop rambling and get into my delightful conversation with author Charles Hood. All right. Well, today I'm very excited to welcome Charles Hood onto Wild Tales. Thanks for joining us today, Charles.
I'm so happy to be with everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
So I was reading your biography, and I just want to just read a portion of this to my audience because I find this fascinating. But it says, in addition to being an author and professor, Hood has also been a factory worker, a ski instructor, a dishwasher, and a nature guide in Africa. Nature study has taken him to all 50 U.S. states, 80 countries, and the South Pole. Along the way, you've seen 6,000 species of birds in the wild, 1,000 kinds of animals. Charles has been lost in a whiteout in Tibet, contracted and survived bubonic plague, and published 20 books and over 800 photographs. I want to talk about all of this and cover your whole life story, but we have limited time, so I don't know where to start. But I know it's not really animal related, or maybe it is, but I do want to ask, how does someone contract the bubonic plague?
All right, I want to encourage our listeners to get a classical education. If you don't have one yet, it's time to know your history. So we all know there was bubonic plague, and therefore you should probably know the onsets, one of the symptoms when it onsets, if you've read a book called The Distant Mirror, by Barbara Tuchman. So I had crawled through a field in Oklahoma trying to get close to these lesser prairie chickens, and I had to crawl over a prairie dog mound. And then, of course, I came in contact with the fleas from the prairie dogs. So then in New Mexico, later in the trip, 2 weeks later, when I get the swollen buboes, like, oh, I know what's happening right now. I know black bile when I see it. But, with modern medicine, what could I, as they say in Monty Python, I was dead, but I got better. Also, the bubonic plague isn't as virulent now as it used to be. And that's simply, like if it killed off all the humans, there'd be no hosts left. So it is survivable, thank you partly to antibiotics and partly to an education that I knew the symptoms.
Oklahoma. I was reading that, wondering what third world country you're in, but you're right here in the U.S.
Well, we won't insult your audience by saying that I was in a third world country.
Well.
But I was crawling through a field on my belly over a prairie dog mountain trying to get up on some birds. And I didn't even see the birds. That's the depressing thing, right? Didn't get my lesser prairie chickens.
Okay.
I think I had bad information on that site.
So you're not an immortal that was born in the 1700s.
Yeah, we don't talk about my vampiric origins. That's for a different station.
Great. Well, I'm really excited to have you on the show. You sent me a copy of your new book that's coming out, right? It's not released yet.
Well, that's always a soft, it's in a warehouse somewhere. Yeah. If you go on Amazon, I'm sure someone can find the,
all right.
Nature at Night is out there somewhere.
Nature at Night. Here, I have a copy. I'm holding in my hand. This is an audio podcast, but I'll post a video clip of this. But yeah, I was looking through this. This is, first of all, it's great information, great book, visually stunning. The photographs and everything are just beautiful.
Well, you're very kind. One of the things about the book here, I'll hold my copy closer to the microphone so your listening audience can see it better. One of the things we tried to do was to never have a deer in the headlights. We all know that cliche, but it's also true, right? That an animal too overlit, or if you've been at a party and someone had a flash cube on their camera way back in the day, we all had red eyes. So this is fashion model lighting brought to the rainforest and used like with bats. So if I with researchers and we're catching bats in nets and handling them for scientific purposes, I would take a picture. But I was traveling with extra duffel bags, as everybody would imagine, like for Vogue magazine, they don't just take your camera out and start shooting. They've got soft, wrapped, diffused light. And I was using that trick to make nature less fearsome, to be honest. I to try to get a really, if I can use this word, a sexy picture of a snake or a really kind of flattering picture of a bat, because we have so many misperceptions about the night.
I agree. And is that because, most people are asleep at night? They don't know what's going on around them in their own backyards at night. They have a misconception of what these animals are up to.
Well, particularly in North America and even in Europe, I think we've been trained to fear the night because it's profitable for certain companies to tell us that we need security lights and motion triggered lights. And so we begin to buy into this idea that if there's no lights, then the bad things are going to get us. The bad people, the bad animals, the bad vibes, the miasma that's out there. But the reality is, if for all of us who are listening right now, your great grandfather could walk around in the dark perfectly fine. If we go back 50, 100, 150 years, no one could come home from the field back to the village. If you couldn't walk by moonlight, you just have to sit there and starve. So we've been told we need lights, but really we don't.
Good point. So you've already covered a little brief stories talking about taking photos of bats and crawling through chicken poop, animal-related stories. But talking about this, when you're writing and taking photographs for this book, Nature at Night, any particular stories or incidents that stand out that you can recall?
So for those of you who are bird watchers, people keep lists, a trip list, a year list, a yard list. And then there are mammal watchers who keep lists, and they're a smaller group, but nonetheless just as dedicated. So I've been blessed to be invited along with some of the top mammal watchers in the world as they go on their expeditions. So we went to Gabon in West Africa to look for the giant pangolin. I think a lot of people now have heard of pangolin, this sort of scaly anteater from the old world. But there is a kind that is never seen. It's in the Congo Basin called the giant pangolin, and it's a biggin. It weighs 80 pounds. It's bigger than a Newfoundland dog, and hardly ever seen. Of course, the native trackers see it, and a few researchers have some radio collared, but the normal tourist never sees them. So we did an expedition. We were staying in a abandoned village, abandoned research station, no electricity, just drinking out of the rivers and bathing there and hiking in the forest at night. And the guards who took us around, the trackers, were saying, "Run, run, run," in French, which I don't speak all that well, but I know run in French. And then I thought, the elephants are after us, because there are now two species of elephants in Africa that's been split apart. The regular grassland savanna elephant that everyone sees on safari in Kenya, which is relatively benign and, you kind of predict what it's going to do. But then the other species now is the rainforest or the West African elephant, and it is a little bit more temperamental, and it really, when it sees a human, it just thinks, I think I'll smoosh that thing flat. There's a person, I'll just run out and smoosh it. That seems to be their sort of reaction. And so they are actually a legitimate threat. And so when the trackers were saying, "Run, run, run," and we were really trying to conserve our flashlight batteries because we were staying in a camp with no electricity. So we had rechargeable batteries. So like sort of every third person had his or her light on in the dimmest setting. And I'm trying to run through the rainforest of Gabon at night with no flashlight, thinking, well, if I have to die, I guess this is as good a way to go as any other, like better, I suppose, this. And then we say, they can say I died by doing what I liked. But then we get there and the trackers had found a giant pangolin. And that was the great thing. And we were trying to get a picture of it. And I have to confess, we did something a little bit bad. They tried to grab the pangolin by its tail. Two trackers, these are very athletic people. They could be, playing on an NFL team. They could not deter that animal. It was just like, I'm going over here now. And it just flings them off with its tail off into the darkness. And off it goes. But there it was. We saw a giant pangolin. They do exist.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I can imagine because they're all pretty much muscle and just having about 60 pounds a pangolin.
Yeah, they weigh the giant. 80
I've seen
pounds.
like smaller South African version, and they're just tight little balls of muscle. But yeah, that's a lot of animal to try to hold.
Yeah, it's almost prehistoric. If you know about giant ground sloths or something, they have these immense digging talons on their front feet and so on. So, yay for going out with people that are A, determined to see things, and B, can make the connections up with the researchers.
That's great. Yeah, and being in Africa myself a few times, I know if your trackers or guides say run, you don't question them. You just go off what they're...
And if they say it's up in the bushes, like, okay, it's up there somewhere. I just need to keep looking until I can see what they see.
Oh, they can see, a small little mammal, it's 60 miles away in a bush somewhere, and they got great vision. They do it every day. They know what they're doing.
Yes, it's really sort of depressing because I'm pretty good actually, and even though I wear glasses, I'm pretty good sight, but I'm nothing compared to them. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, at least you would have been trampled by an elephant, though. You would have had an exciting obituary.
Yes, I write. Someone can write that one up for me. I don't mind. Yeah.
That's great. That's so. I'm guessing that was one of the bucket list animals that you got to see.
Sure, there are 6,000 species of mammals, and the top person of all, John Hall. Hi, John Hall. He's seen 2,400, something like that. The rest of us are at the 1,000 mark. He works for the UN, so I always say it's an unfair advantage. He has to travel for work, but he's also just very, very dedicated, more so even than I am. I have a friend that just came back from the Congo. There's a little small group, but they're like the most hardcore bird watchers. They want to do it all the time, and if they have to work occasionally, that seems to be a nuisance they'll put up with, or show up for their family once in a while. But they're out there in the field most of the time, and I do go with them. In Nicaragua, we saw a species of bat that had never been seen alive before. I went out with the bat people, and it was known only from a skull, and so we trapped it and deduced it must be this one. Photographed it, got a DNA sample, which is awaiting publication still. So yeah, this is for your listeners. Find some friends, and then make sure they're rich friends. It really helps to have rich friends. Like some of the stuff is really expensive, like the thermal scopes we use at night to look for the body heat of an animal, the thermal signature of an animal. Those are thousands of dollars. You definitely want a rich friend when it comes time to buy your heat scope.
Oh, well, if there's any listeners out there who are rich, who need a friend, I can volunteer my services.
Mike is volunteering his services, y'all. Right, yeah.
I'm sure Charles might be available as well.
Yes, I'm a good guide. I travel well. I take good pictures. I guarantee I'll get you a really sexy picture for your YouTube page, for your website page.
Yeah, I don't know how many mammals I've seen. Probably not nearly as many as you, as your friends. I just started recently keeping track of my bird species. A few episodes ago, I was talking to Chris Mortensen, who's the host of All Creatures podcast, and he was bird shaming me because we both use the eBird app. Do you use the eBird?
Yes.
And I just started kind of keeping track. So I had like 30 species that I observed. So since then, I've been building up. I'm almost to 100 now. So we'll see over the next few years how high I can get up to. But I got to get out of my little pocket here in Southern California and start checking out other parts of the country and other countries to get those numbers up.
Well, Mike, shame on you indeed, because Southern California, they did a weekend, Los Angeles County, they did a weekend count 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and they had a bad year. They only had 265 species from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Collectively, everybody's lists put together. But yes, you're around a lot of things.
I'm far from professional. It's pure amateur here, but I'll get up there.
It's addictive, so I actually don't recommend it. If you have an addictive personality, don't take up bird listing. It never ends, because then
Well,
even after you've seen all the birds, you still want to see them for this year or this month or this location.
yeah, so I think I'm officially what they call at bird watching age. So, I'm getting there. So let's go back to nature at night. So you discover, you're roaming through or taking photos of different regions, different areas under the ocean. Did you get to do any of those photographies or scuba diving?
I'm a reasonably good researcher, so if I can't find a picture, I know someone who took it. I do have a good picture that's in the book that I'm proud of. There's a dolphin leaping out of the water that actually tells us a lot about nature at night under the ocean. So here's the backstory. The biggest migration in the world is not the Serengeti, and it's not the caribou up in Alaska. It is the oceans of the world. Trillions of organisms are moving up and down thousands of feet at a time, from the daytime where they're down in the darker depths up to the nighttime when they want to feed on the surface. So phytoplankton, they need sunlight. They're the little planty things in the ocean. And so they're up at the surface all the time. But things that want to eat the phytoplankton, to sort of graze the grass, so to speak, they don't want to get eaten by anything else. So they come up at night. And that means that the things that are following them are coming up, and things that are following them that are coming up. We all can imagine the food chain here. And one of the things that is participating in this vertical migration every day are the cookie cutter sharks. These are about 1.5 feet long. They kind of look like a big slug or a big eel or something. And they've got a completely circular mouth full of very, very sharp teeth. And as animals are coming from the lower depths to the higher depths, these cookie cutter sharks dart in and grab a mouthful of flesh, twist in a circle and peel away and grab that outer layer of epidermis and maybe some muscle and fat, whatever they've gotten. And we can see their actions on dolphins, because dolphins are chasing nocturnal squid. Of course, dolphins have echolocation. They don't care whether it's daytime or nighttime. So most dolphins are feeding at night. They're feeding on these squid that are following the little animals, that are following the other little animals. And the cookie cutter sharks are coming in. And so I got a picture of a leaping dolphin in Indonesia, and it had these sort of starfish-shaped scars down its side, like little rosettes, like little wedding corsages all down its length. Like, what the heck is that all about? That's not a barnacle. And then I realized, those are healed cookie cutter shark bites that it got chasing the squid at night. I hope that all made sense to your listeners. A little bit complicated ecosystem stuff going on there. But we do have some pictures also of the dolphins underwater at night. I didn't take that picture. Luckily, my editors were able to work with me on locating the people that had the right pictures. But thank you. You're very kind to even bring it up.
Yeah, I found that page right now as you were talking of the dolphin leaping out and the cookie cutter shark right next to it. Those things are, I would not want that mouth around any part of me. That looks gnarly.
Yeah, it's a very nasty looking kind of thing for, if your audience wants to look it up. Yeah, they do. Yeah. They're a little bit alien, like they're a little creepy. And there's a picture in the book of a submarine, how we found out about cookie cutter sharks. They were unknown to science, but the American submarines in the 1970s were losing their radar capability because something was gnawing on the neoprene housing that covered the electronics. And it turned out, research revealed that it was the cookie cutter sharks. They thought the neoprene on the submarine was like a really big, juicy whale with one soft spot, a hard whale with a soft spot, and they were biting the submarines and wrecking all this equipment. And now we know more about them. And now our submarines are different too.
Wow, I would imagine, especially just nature under the water, even at night or during any time, we know so very little about. I imagine at night there's even less that we know about.
Sure. For those who are listening who want to, you're looking for your PhD project, I always recommend, can you please explain to us why some of the mammals glow in the dark, which is something we've only learned about recently? Platypuses, for example, in Australia, if you have a UV flashlight, which of course you want so you can see scorpions, they glow in the dark, but you take your UV flashlight and as the platypus swims by, or in the case of North America, as the flying squirrel glides by at night, they glow under a UV flashlight. They don't actually glow without the flashlight, but they do glow. And you also need those flashlights to see glow-in-the-dark lichen, which is how the flying squirrels were discovered to be glowing in the dark, because some botanists were out at night looking for glow-in-the-dark lichen with their UV flashlights, and then a squirrel flew by, and they go, wow, that squirrel is glowing hot pink. What's going on with that? And then they go to the museum. So there is a PhD dissertation waiting to happen. One of your listeners should do this and figure out how many animals glow in the dark and why, because we don't know. We would like to know, but we don't know.
Yeah, two questions I would love to know the answer to, especially why. I mean, even scorpions too. You got some scorpions. I've seen. I have one in the house that my son has. That we have a little UV light. We can glow on it and see it just pop at night.
Yeah, all scorpions glow in the dark with UV light. Just a $10 light from Amazon will do that, and there are some more expensive kinds of flashlights too. There's lots of theories, of course. It may be that it just helps them with photosensitivity to give a sense that from moonlight they're out in the open. It's part of their their whole exoskeleton is sort of absorbing this moonlight, and they realize I need to get under cover. I'm kind of exposed here. With the flying squirrels, maybe it helps them with vitamin D in some kind of a way because they are nocturnal. There are 3 species of flying squirrels here in North America, and they glide from tree. They don't flap their wings like a bird, of course, but they glide from tree to tree, and they are nocturnal. So maybe it's helping with some type of vitamin deficiency. But no, we're waiting. Your listeners are gonna. Anyone listening to this program, they're into it, right? They're gonna tell us. They're gonna tell us what's going on.
I hope so. Well, my listeners, find the answer and then contribute it to the Wild Tales podcast.
We'll put you on air for an hour and mention your name a lot.
That's all I want in my life. So how did you get interested in this? Wildlife in general, wildlife at night? What was the inspiration for this book?
I'm lucky in that I'm from a different generation maybe than some of our youngest listeners that, my parents loved me. I'm sure we went, we did everything right. But hey, as long as you're back by dinner, you don't get arrested. We don't, go do your thing. You got a bike, go do your thing. So I could be out exploring on my own I grew up in East LA, so along the Los Angeles River, or sneaking into the zoo through the back, a hole in the fence in the back. I just had some freedom of movement. So I always associate nature with pleasure and with independence and with knowledge and sometimes fear. I would scare myself, when I saw a snake I wasn't prepared for. But to me, it's a place to be at home, and I don't really think about, that I don't belong there. I think I don't belong there more likely when I'm trying to park, like in Santa Monica or something. Wow, they don't want me here. Look, there's no parking signs. I'm the wrong guy for them. But nature, I never feel that. I always feel somehow welcome, even if it's hot and humid, and I don't like the humidity. But I never feel excluded, and I don't know how to share that with everybody. Like, it's our birthright. We get to do it. Let's go out and have some fun. It's free. Go out for a hike. It's free.
Absolutely. It's free. You never know what you're going to find. You go on the same hike every day for a year and see something different every day when it comes to nature. Different plants, animals, bugs, birds, wildlife, bobcats. You never know.
Right. And then if you do the same trail that you've done during the day at night with a friend, with a backup flashlight, I always say bring 2 flashlights. If you've ever lost your car keys or dropped your glasses or something, like if you bring one flashlight, you're bound to drop it in the stream. That's inevitable, or your batteries are going to die. Bring a backup flashlight. You'll never need it, but have it there. And maybe go with a friend if you're a little bit, secure, worried about your security or your orientation. But yeah, you're going to see whether it's the glow in the dark lichen or whether you see a bobcat or a coyote, or in the summer the snakes are more likely to be out at night just because it's a little bit cooler, and so they're trying to respond to that, or the prey is out, the mice are out. Sure, you're bound to see something or smell something, hear something. We get to turn off our vision a little bit at night and use our other senses, so that's part of the pleasure, smelling all the different aromas that are coming out of the little bit higher humidity at night. So often the plants are a little bit more aromatic. Yeah, give it a try. It's fun.
Yeah. So how did this passion for animals and wildlife take you from East LA to like the South Pole and Africa and all these different countries?
I'm the guy who says fill out the little piece of paper. So, for example, for your audience, I am a retired English professor. I am professor emeritus, blah blah blah. But I have this sort of secret hidden life of outdoor travel and outdoor nature, and I always fill out the piece of paper. I wanted to go to Papua New Guinea to see the birds, and I was a student. I didn't have any money, but then I found out the Fulbright program, they'll send American citizens abroad. So I said, what's really essential right now for the world is for us to translate this tribal poetry before it disappears. You need to send me to Papua New Guinea. I'm an expert in ethnopoetics, which was sort of true and sort of not true exactly. I was expert adjacent. I'm going to go and learn the language and meet these people and capture their material on the page, because I'm really good at that, in a way that's sensitive to their oral traditions. I won't superimpose my Western literary canon on them. I'll find an organic way of expressing themselves, and you all need to send me there. And as one of my professors said when he was writing my recommendation, he says, be careful, you may have to go. And so sure enough, I went to Papua New Guinea, and if you give a mouse a cookie, for those of you who have taught that book to your children, if you give a mouse a cookie, well, then I'm going to want to go to Antarctica. If you send me to New Guinea, someone's going to pay me to go to the South Pole. It's not like a place I can go on my own, really. So Yes, one thing has led to another over the years. So Borneo and Tibet and Madagascar,
Oh my
mostly on
goodness.
my own. I want to mostly I had to pay for it
Yeah.
myself through teaching overtime, teaching extra classes. If we're going to be honest about it, to get the money, I worked a lot of extra hours.
I can relate. And, if there's a place you want to go, if there's a will, there's a way. And if you don't have, if you're not rich, you don't have that money in the bank, find a way. I've always, when I was a kid, always wanted to travel to Africa. That was my goal. And then I got to do that through a grant to work with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. And that was like, I was 30 as the first time I got to go. And I'm like, this is it. This will just feed that need. I went to Kenya, spent a few weeks there, came back. But no, I'm like, that wasn't, it's like a drug. It's like, now I got to go back. That's just one country. There's so many. I went back. I've been to Namibia and I'm hoping to go back some more. But, it's, you find, if you're clever, you can find other people to fund your trips for you.
Absolutely. And that's funny because I went to Kenya for my first sub-Saharan Africa trip. And when I was 30, it just took that long for all the, family relations and everything to line up. And I remember when I booked that trip, I was sort of hugging myself in the mirror, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to leave, in 6 weeks and go to Kenya. This is amazing. And then when I got there, it was every bit as amazing. For those who haven't gone yet, y'all, it's like it's exactly like what it looks like, in the TV show. You see a secretary bird or a giraffe even, wow. This is so much better than a zoo. Nothing against zoos. I want to take my kids to zoos, but come on, my grandkids too. But come on now, the real thing is so much better.
Oh yeah, something about just seeing animals in their natural environment. So yeah, I work at a zoo. So yeah, nothing against zoos. I'm always a big zoo supporter, but I'll be driving through the zoo and we're next to, the city park and we drive past, all these, animals that we have on display. Like, oh, we see every day kind of unnoticed, but we see a wild deer on the other side of the fence in the park. We got to stop. I'm like, oh, look, it's a deer. And it's just a different setting. It's just animal in its own world. And it's like, it's different. And it's just
so,
more
Mike,
engaging.
Have you shared with your audience the P-22 story in the LA Zoo? Have we had that on air?
I have not.
Eating the koalas? Do you want to tell it or shall I?
A koala. Let's get
a
that
koala,
straight.
yes. Yeah, they did not come in and graze all the. I just think I'm nothing against the zoos. I just think it's that's where nature will find a way. So.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, being at the zoo, we were all shocked of all the animals, all like the small gazelle and deer-like, and all the, mountain lion, prey-looking animals. They picked a koala. We're like, why a koala? How do they even recognize that a koala would be food? But yeah, after that, we shade on P-22. He's doing what cougars do. And so we just did a better job after that to protect our animals. And that was the only animal that he was able to get from our zoo.
Apparently, yeah, for those of you who don't know, P-22 is the now deceased famous puma from Griffith Park in Los Angeles that crossed all the freeways to end up in a relatively small area and then was mostly eating mule deer, and I apparently ate a gray fox at least once. So, yeah, nothing against the LA Zoo, and it's a place I've been at that zoo more times than any other zoo. I grew up in East LA and also along the LA River in Atwater. I've been there many more times than the San Diego Zoo. So we wish to support our zoos, but I have to say, when you see the same animals, lemurs or anything in true nature, quote unquote true nature, whoo, your little heart goes pitter pat.
Agree. So these are some great stories. It's great talking to you. I hope I can get you back on the show again. But in the meantime, Nature by Night, where can our listeners look for this book? Where can they pre-order it?
It's from a company called Timber Press, which is in Portland, Oregon, and they have a website, or any bookstore for those of you who remember what those look like. Better to support your local bookstore and ask for Nature at Night there than to go through Amazon. But if Amazon is how you get your books, who am I to judge? So it's out now. It's called Nature at Night. And thank you for mentioning the photographs. I'm pretty happy with how the book looks. It's a pretty snappy looking publication.
You should be. It's gorgeous. Nature at Night, Discover the Hidden Worlds That Come Alive After Dark by Charles Hood. Charles, thank you for being on Wild Tales, and can't wait to see what you have in store for us in the future.
Thank you so much. This has been great fun. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care. Hey, I want to give a big thanks to Charles Hood for coming on the podcast today. He just seems like a really cool dude. I think I could hang with him, have a few beers, tell some stories. He seems like he's lived a life. He's actually one of the first guests, actually the first guest I've had on Wild Tales who I have not known previously, because that's what you do when you start a podcast. You start by inviting your friends on and people you know to help you out. And now thanks to you, all my loyal listeners, word's getting out, and I'm getting to interview people who I don't know, people that live fascinating lives and do interesting things and write fascinating books. So, yeah, please check out Nature at Night by Charles Hood. Check it out wherever you find books. I highly recommend supporting a local bookstore if you have one near you. But if you get your books on Amazon, get the book on Amazon. Wherever you can get it, just get it. It is great information, beautifully stunning, great photography in it. It's great exploration of the nocturnal world. It's got a lot of wit, curiosity, and an adventurous spirit. So it really kind of takes the readers onto a journey into the darkness. So check it out, Nature at Night. And also check out the Wild Tales podcast on social media, Instagram at Wild Tales Pod, Blue Sky just at Wild Tales, and other various social medias. Just search for Wild Tales podcast. STAILS Tales. You can also email the podcast at wildtalespod@gmail.com. Send me an email. Let me know you're listening. If you have any topics you want to hear about, any stories you want to tell, any guests you think should be on the podcast, make a recommendation. I would love to hear it, and maybe your guest will be on the podcast. So that's it for now. I'll let you guys go, and until next time, stay wild, my friends.